Hello and welcome to the Structured Data for E-commerce webinar. My name is Durate and I will be your host for today. I hope this session will be very helpful and informative. One of the things that I love to do is actually to spoil the ending of my presentation right at the start. My big idea for you today is that you cannot think anymore in the same traditional way of doing SEO. Search engines are becoming way smarter and organic opportunities are shrinking. So, our webinar today will be divided into two main parts. In the first part, we will see how search engines were changing in the last years, and in the second part, we will discover the solution to increase your traffic and boost your sales with an outstanding technology to get you ahead of your competition. So let's get started. Why the best time to sell in Google is now? So let's get started with the biggest news of this year. On the 21st of April 2020, Bill Ready, the President Commerce of Google, has announced that it's now free to sell in Google. The question that comes in our mind, why Google is changing the game right now? Because we know that till 2012, Google has adopted the pay-to-play model. That means if you want to appear in the product search of Google, you have to pay. At the time, small businesses argued they would not be able to compete with the large companies' advertising budget. 8 years later, when there are hundreds of millions of shopping searches on Google, each day the company is revising the course. And this is the first reason. The second reason is simply the competitions with Amazon, because Google in some way was losing these competitions against Amazon. So opening Google Shopping to everyone means that there will be more products available to consumers. More products available means more product searches and higher usage. The higher usage means more competitions and more pull against Amazon. Okay, so we all know that it's a very good moment to invest in e-commerce, but the big question is how to drive more organic traffic to your online store with SEO. Here, let me give you a very simple advice. If you want more traffic, you need to think like a search engine. So, in today's webinar, I'm going to present to you an outstanding solution that uses the artificial intelligence that you need in order to grow your audience. But before jumping to the solution, I want to give you a quick introduction to three main concepts that they will change the way you are looking for SEO. Those are the structured data, the entities, and the knowledge graph. So let's get started discovering them. Okay, so let's start with the first concept, the structured data. So what is structured data? The structured data is code in a specific format written in such a way the search engine can understand. So basically with the structured data, you can talk to the search engine. Why to use the structured data? I mean, here I'm not going to dive into the different reasons that we are using the structured data, but I can tell you in a few words that you need to use the structured data if you want to make sure your page will be understood by the search engine. What does structured data look like? Here we can, see an example of the structured data code written in the JSON-LD format. This is the famous format and the one recommended by the search engines. On the right side and on the left side, you can see the different information the search engine is able to pull out from this code. So if you are implementing the structured data on your website on a specific page, for example, you can bring the URL of the page, go to the Google Structured Data Testing tool, put the URL, do the test, and see exactly what are the information that the search engine is able to pull out from your page. So in this situation, we have a product page, for example. We see that using the structured data, the search engine is able to see all the specification about the product. So the name of the product, the URL, the image, the price, the SKU, the aggregate rank, and all of this stuff. So is the structured data is a ranking factor? This is the clearest answer given for us by John Moddar. All types of structured data help us to better understand the entities on a page. So it's very clear. If the search engine is able to understand better what is your page about, of course, after the search engine will be able to match better your page with the right search intent that you are looking for. This is exactly the situation that represents the using of the structured data. So on the right side, you can see that when the search engine arrives to the website and you are using the structured data on the website, it will be much easier for the search engine to understand the different specifications for the different products that you have on the website. Instead, if you are not using the structured data, it will be harder and will be more confusing for the search engine to understand what your websites and what your product pages is about. Moving to the second concept, the entity. So, what is an entity? Here, before we start, I'm going to ask the help of my colleague Gennaro, who is going to give us an introduction about the entities and the difference between an entity and a keyword. Here we go.
We see now the semantic web has been actually created and why it is important. And as we've seen, actually, the semantic web is powering up the web that we know today, even though many have not realized it. When we look at the artificial intelligence revolution, which is a buzzword in the marketing, digital marketing space, we're actually talking about how technologies like semantic web technologies enable companies like Google to query billions and billions of data out of what is called the knowledge graph. We're going to see more in detail what is knowledge graph further, but right now it is important to understand that we live in a semantic web world. Now, if I'm talking about the city, actually if I'm saying out of the blue Washington, what do I mean? Am I talking about Washington DC, the capital of the US? Am I talking about Washington the state? Am I talking about Washington the president of the first president of the United States? Well, in reality, to actually understand that, we can do three things. I can define the concept, so I can say Washington is the first president of the United States, or I can actually give it a bit of context, so I can say I'm talking about Washington DC, which is the capital of the US. In other words, in order for us to understand a concept, we need to look at it from its definition, from the context, and from other and several aspects. Now, if I'm a search engine and I want to understand the concept, for me, there is also a way to actually understand it by looking at the definition of that concept. That is called schema, which is a vocabulary which we're going to see in the next lecture. But for now, let's keep in mind that that's what an entity is. An entity is a machine-readable concept that search engines like Google can actually process and can understand right away. And this is the key difference between an entity and a keyword. That you can understand, that you can already appreciate the power of an entity, because actually an entity is something that the search engine can actually understand right away. There is no other specifications that you have to give to the search engine, because you're actually providing something that is machine readable. That's why when we do a semantic SEO strategy, pretty much we use entities and we don't use much of keywords. I'm not saying that keywords are not important. They are. You still have to use them. You still have to know how to craft a title. You still have to know how to customize your meta descriptions and all the basic stuff. But if you understand how to actually use entities and why those are important, you can actually power up your SEO strategy, and you can build up on the basic SEO strategy and have a semantic.
So, as we see in the previous video, an entity is a thing or concept that is singular, unique, well-defined, and distinguishable. So, a person is an entity, a product is an entity, the place is an entity, the book, the event, the local business. Nowadays, we have more than 700 schemas according to Schema.org, the vocabulary used by the most of the search engine. Why is very important and crucial to understand the entity concept in the modern SEO? Because we see this movement from strength to things till 2013. Google and Bing have both indicated a shift to entity-based search results as a part of their evolution, starting with the Hummingbird updates, and later on in 2015, AI became a major factor to search with the Rank Brain. So you are not a keyword anymore, you are an entity. I am a person entity. If you have a shop, your shop is a local business. If you are selling products, your products also are entities, and so on and so forth. Cool. Now we arrive to the third and the last concept, the knowledge graph. Before we starting with the knowledge graph, I want you to see these videos about the Google's knowledge graph that will blow your mind.
Wouldn't it be amazing if Google could understand that the words that you use when you're doing a search, well, they aren't just words. They refer to real things in the world. That a building is a building, and an animal is an animal, and that they're not just random strings of characters. If we can understand that those words are talking about those real-world things, then we could do a better job of getting you just the content that you want off the web.
The way Google is trying to build information about real-world connections is by building a knowledge graph. The knowledge graph is about collecting information about objects in the real world. The object could be a person, could be a book, could be a movie, and many other types of things. For example, for a famous person, we collect relevant data about them, such as their date of birth or how tall they are. We can also connect that person to closely related objects in the knowledge graph.
Let's say you're interested in Renaissance painters, or how about how many women have won the Nobel Prize? By understanding the relationships between things, be it between painters in the Renaissance or women in the Nobel Prize, Google can do a better job of understanding what it is exactly you're searching for.
One of the first features we are going to introduce, which applies the knowledge graph, is a panel next to the web results.
When you have a question to answer, others may have come to Google already to search for the same thing. Google can jumpstart your research process by combining the information that others found useful with the information in the knowledge graph.
All of the collective human wisdom that comes through our search engine, what people are searching for, tells us what are the interesting things to put in our database.
Take Leonardo da Vinci. Let's say you wanted to learn about the most important Renaissance painters. You might search for Leonardo da Vinci because he's the only Renaissance painter you know about. Now, you'll see information right in the search results that helps you explore the broader topic of Renaissance painters. You'll see some of the most famous paintings from that era, like the Mona Lisa, and discover other painters of that time, like Michelangelo and Raphael.
We're in the early phases of moving from being an information engine to becoming a knowledge engine, and these enhancements are one step in that direction.
As we grow the knowledge graph and make it larger and richer, we're really excited at the opportunity we have to understand more of the user's queries, to understand more about the information that's out there on the web, and intelligently connect the two to each other.
Okay, so now we've got an idea about the Google knowledge graph. Next question is how I can build my knowledge graph and why it's important. The answer for these questions we can find it in the next video coming back to my colleague Gennaro. Here we go.
There are two major changes. The first one is Schema.org in 2011, which was rolled out by the main commercial search engines like Google, Yandex, Yahoo, Bing, and so on and so forth. And then in 2012, there was the knowledge graph. So Google started to build its own knowledge graph, which was meant to actually produce content and knowledge out of this knowledge graph. But what's really a knowledge graph? At basic level, it's just a massive database which is made of triples. A triple is just a simple statement. Like I can say, I know Jason, Jason knows Bill, and those are two triples. And by combining those two triples, that's how you start building up a knowledge graph, because a knowledge graph is made of linked data. And the more you have those triples that come together, the more you build up a knowledge graph. So this is more similar to the way probably we human at least articulate written language in some way. And that's how the knowledge graph can be built up. So this is very basic explanation. But why is the knowledge graph important? Right now, for instance, with the team at WordLift, we used to say that the knowledge graph is very important for SEO, so you get traffic from Google. But in reality, a knowledge graph is very important for many other reasons. The first one is Bill has highlighted today, when you build up a knowledge graph, you also allow the search engine to reference the data that you're giving it. So it makes it easier for Google to see if you're giving to the search engine the quality data, let's call it in this way. Because if you're doing it, then it means that Google can trust you. And if Google can trust you, it means that can also rank you higher. So in that sense, the knowledge graph is going to speed up authority. So for instance, we have the Next Web, which is using WordLift on its website, and they have their own entities which are built up as an internal knowledge graph. And you can use it in many other ways. For instance, on a travel platform, we've been implementing a knowledge graph which allow them to create several touch points with their users, which makes them make more money, because you can convert those users in paying customers very quickly. So we try to create, as we create a user navigation with the menu of a website, we try to do the same with the structured data. So we create a sort of a path for the users that can navigate through. And through this, sort of navigation that we create with the structured data, we can make them take certain actions. So this is very important. So how do you build your knowledge graph? So the first step is schema.org. You need to get familiar with schema. Build this today, but also Cindy this morning gave us a lot of information. And really schema, it's a shared, it's a vocabulary which allows you to explain to the search engine what your website is about. So this is about meaning. It allows you to tell Google, hey, this is what I'm talking about. This is the way you should be reading my content, and that's why we want to use schema. We actually, with the team at Vurank, which is a Belgian company, we looked at almost 20 million websites, and we noticed that a very small percentage is using metadata, which means that still today, even though structured data I think should be a best practice, still today very few websites are using it, and I think more people can take advantage of this strategy. And it's very good for you if you start doing it today, because it means that you're going to get more results now.
Okay, so now we arrived to the most interesting part of this webinar. Cool. So now we understand the importance of the entities, the importance of the structured data, the importance of the knowledge graph. We get an idea about how the search engine works and how they've been changing in the last years. The next big question is how to add all this stuff to my website. Okay, so the good news is the solution is much more easier than you can imagine, using the AI-powered SEO, using the technology of WordLift. Let's see this introducing video before jumping into the details. Here we go.
Hey, I'm Courtney. Today I'm going to teach you all about AI-powered SEO and how WordLift can help you boost your organic traffic and make your website way smarter. Right now, we're living in the dark ages of SEO. Things are becoming way more complicated, search engines are becoming smarter, and organic opportunities, well, they're shrinking. And let's face it, the benefits of traditional SEO, they're shrinking too. As Google moves from mobile first to AI first, it's time for you to get on board and create that high-ranking content. What we call a Gentive Seo uses the power of AI to do that heavy lifting of content optimization so that editors, marketers, and business owners can focus their attention elsewhere. The difference between traditional SEO and a Gentive SEO is kind of like the difference between a vacuum cleaner and a Roomba. It's the difference between manually building link by link by link and letting AI do that for you. Tools like WordLift and WooRank use natural language processing, knowledge graphs, and machine learning to automate those super tedious SEO tasks, much like a consultant would do. Organizing your content and building your own knowledge graph doesn't need to be intimidating. Let these impressive technologies take care of that for you. And this isn't just a vague sales pitch. We helped one of our clients improve their organic visibility by 61%. And now they have more than 1.3 million new users every month. So what are you waiting for? Start your free trial right now and get ahead of your competition.
Okay, so now let's discover how to boost SEO for e-commerce with 3 simple steps: creating entities, adding structured data, building knowledge graph, and all that in less than 1 minute using WordLift without touching a single line of code. Okay, so now we are on a WordPress website that use WooCommerce. We see that we have this beautiful shop that sell Italian handmade clothes. This is the product page, blue pants. So how we can convert, this product into entity? We just need to go to the back end of the websites. Once we are on the back end of the websites, we need to scroll down till we find the entity type box. Here, what we need to do is only selecting the kind of the entity. In our case, it's a product. So we select the kind of the entity product. We click on update and that's it. In this way, we convert this page from a normal page to an entity page. Then all of those entities, we can find them in one place under a folder. We can find it always on WordPress. That's called the vocabulary. So as we see here we have the vocabulary folder that contains all the entities. So if we have 100 products, we can convert them easily by selecting the entity type on each page and convert them directly to entities. And that's it. Okay, now let's move to the second step and see how to add the structured data. Before we start, let me give you a good news. If you have WooCommerce and after you active WordLift, then a half of this operation will be done automatically. So if you have the basic information on your WooCommerce like the price, the SKU, all this stuff, once you active WordLift, the structured data of this basic information will be automatically done. Then what you have to do is coming back to the product page, check on the back end of the website and see those extra fields that contains also an extra information that can be added to the markup of the product page, like the item condition, the brand, the organization related to the brand, the color, for example, of the product, the MPN, all this stuff. You can add it to have a more complete markup for your product page. Then if you are curious to know what is the output of this operation, let me show you exactly what you get. So here on the right side, you can see the code produced by those simple steps by adding those extra fields. And on the left side, you can see the structured data and the information that Google is able to pull out from this code. And it's pretty cool because you don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be a JSON LD expert. You just need to fill up those extra fields and let the job after for the AI, let everything for the AI to do the heavy lifting for you, and benefit from this huge amount of information that you are providing the search engine with, and will help the search engine to better understand your product page. Then you can ask me, why do I need this technology in order to produce the structured data? So you could be a developer, so you can produce the JSON ID yourself. Some days ago, one guy has asked me on Facebook, and he told me that I have a plugin that produces the structured data for me. Why do I need this technology? Okay, so the answer is simple. Why? Because we are not only building the structured data, but we are combining the structured data with the entity itself. So having an entity for each product means that in the knowledge graph, the product will have its own URI that Google can crawl with a schema URL that points to the page on the websites. It's similar to having a lot of informations, and we bring all these informations and we put it inside a box. This box represents the entity that has a unique ID, a unique URI that Google can crawl and see all the information inside the box, see all the information inside this entity. But it doesn't finish here, because the best thing still need to arrive, and we are going to discover it in the next step. Here we go. Okay, so now we arrived to the third and final part, and we are about to discover one of the most advanced technologies that use the AI and the natural language processing. But before jumping to the details, I would like to speak a little bit about the user intents for e-commerce. Why? Because a lot of us forget the importance of the user intents and focus too much on the keywords. The keywords itself doesn't have sense. The most important thing is the user behind these keywords. So when it comes to the e-commerce, usually we speak about three main intents: the informational, the transactional, and the navigational. The informational reflect the intent of the user who is trying to find a solution for his problem. The navigational refers to the navigational queries happen inside your site. And then we have the transactional that reflect the intent of the buyer that wants to purchase something. So when it comes to the transactional, we speak about the product page, how we can improve the structured data, how we can make it more easier for the search engine to understand what our product page about. But coming back to the informational, because also here we have a great opportunity. Because when we speak about the informational, we are speaking about a quality content that we can produce and where we can write articles. So coming back to our examples, when we speak about the blue pants, for example, we had a product page, okay, that have blue pants, okay? So right now, if I don't need the blue pants, or if I'm not searching the blue pants, but instead I'm trying to find a solution to how to dress for a wedding, for example, this is also a great opportunity for any e-commerce. So producing a content that can cover the informational user intent is also very useful. How we can do it in the best way? This is what we are going to discover. Okay, so now we are on the article page. What we are going to do right now on the article page, we are going to go back to the back end of this page, okay? And what happens here that WordLift will do a great job. Why? Because the plugin will analyze the content that I have here on the article using the natural language processing, and after will suggest to me the entities related to this content. And guess what we are going to find in these entities? We are going to find the product entities that we have created in advance. And this is very cool. So what we are going to do right now, what we are going to do is only annotating those products entities. So as we see here, we annotate the necktie, we annotate the pants, and we annotate also the shirt. Okay, we are going to save right now. Let's come back to the front end right now and see what is happening. There we go. So we go to the front end right now. Okay, so let's see right now what we are going to get on the front end. So here we go. First of all, we are going to find the entities that we have annotated in the back end directly in the front end with this beautiful context card. So we see the first product, okay, the shirt with a context card, and then we have the necktie, we have the pants, we have the necktie, and once we click on the entity, we are going to go directly for the product page itself. So why this is very important? Because first of all, we are going to create a lot of internal links that goes directly to the product page. And the huge second advantage is not only creating the internal links, but we are going also to bring the structured data of all these products directly to the article itself. So imagine that an article that has 4 products, we are speaking about 4 products. By doing 4 clicks, annotating these 4 products, we are going to bring to the article structured data all the structured data that we have created before on the entity products page itself. And this is really super powerful. Another cool widget you can add it to the article is the word lift product navigator. So by adding this widget, you can also enrich the article with some new related products as we see here in the front end. Now I would like to share with you this case study for a website that we've been working on in the last months. So on this website, we start with our entity-based content model. So we apply the same 3 steps that we have just discussed. We started with creating the entities. As you see here, our pillar content is the product. We start with the product entity, and after we start building the structured data for this product. So everything regarding the material, the organization, the brand, the model, review, aggregate rating, all this stuff. Then we move to enrich our knowledge graph. And the result was really impressive. Of course, here we are speaking about very particular case because we are speaking about a huge e-commerce that receive hundreds of thousands of clicks each month. And we were implementing the structured data only on a part of the websites to measure the impact. And the impact was really great because on the product search, we were able to increase the traffic from just a few clicks to more than 8,000 clicks in a little bit more than 1 month. Okay, so now we can move to the questions. Please take 1 minute, think about your questions, and let me know. Okay. Let's see here. I have one question from Hilton. Yeah, so he is asking, how do I find related entities? Okay, so basically, I mean, the thing that you need to focus on is what the content on your website is. So if you have an e-commerce, for example, and you have a lot of products, as we explained before, the first thing you need to do is converting those pages from normal pages to an entity pages. And we explained exactly why it's important, to convert them to an entity page. Then inside this entity page, all the structured data about your product will be there. So what you can do is, in addition to improving the quality of the data on your product page, start using also those entities and annotate them on other parts of the site, okay? So if you have an article that is speaking about anything, and you can mention these products inside this content, okay, as we see, for example, in the e-commerce, that we see that how I can dress myself for a wedding, okay? So basically here we are trying to cover the informational user intent by writing new content, and we know this content maybe could have a higher volume search than the product itself. So in this way, the people arrive, and you can annotate those entities, the product entities, and after send the user directly to the product, and this can increase the visibility of the product, and can also increase the sales made by following this strategy. Okay, here we have also other questions from Martina. Okay, let's see. So Martina is asking, I'm using a plugin to create structured data on my website. I noticed some errors when I test some pages. Doesn't it harmful? How I can resolve that? Okay, sure, Martina. If you are using a plugin to implement the structured data, what you need to do is go to the structured data set tool and see where are the problems. What you have to do here is identifying exactly where the errors are. So what are the pieces, that Google is mentioning to you where you have these errors. What you need to do, the information, the decoration of the information related to this product. So if you have some problems with the image or with the aggregate rating or this stuff, you need to add the structured data that is missing. Here, the cool thing that if you are using a plugin, for example, that is always updated, okay, that follow all the latest version of Schema and follow the Google recommendations, this thing you can do, in much more easier way, because all the new properties that you need to add will be mentioned maybe to you, and in this way you can avoid making any errors and have a better structured data on your website. Okay, so we have also a question from Nicolo. Let's see here. Okay, so Nicolo said, I like the idea of creating the knowledge graph, but it is still not clear for me what are the advantages for SEO. Could you give me more explanation? Yes, of course, Nicolo. So, the difference between adding the structured data in a page and understanding this concept of creating an entity, is very important, because here you can make the difference. Because what you have to think about is what are the content on your website. So try to look to your website from above, okay? What you need to do is creating a knowledge graph. Creating, a lot of content that Google can crawl and understand. So in this way, you can, first of all, build the relations between the different products, okay? Because those products are entities, and this will improve the internal linking between them, and also will allow Google to better understand the content that you have on your website. Okay, so here we have also another question. Let's see. So we have a question from Vitalia. She is asking, how many CMS does it work in? For example, Shopify. Yes, of course. Our products, we have a plugin that we can install also in WordPress, and once we don't have WordPress, we have also a cloud product where you can use, and also you can annotate the Shopify using the WordLift cloud. Okay. Okay, we have also another question here from Martina. Let's see. Okay, so Martina is asking, I also have another question. How much of an impact would structured data have on getting a feature snippet? Yeah, of course. I mean, using the structured data is crucial to get the rich results and have a feature snippet. We know that, I mean, it's difficult to have them without using the structured data. The impact really, I mean, here you can find in the click-through rate. So if you have a featured result, of course, this will help you increasing the click-through rate. But don't forget, I mean, very important concept that when you use structured data, this is not only the one thing you need to focus on. I mean, not only about getting a feature snippet, because first of all, you are improving, I mean, the content of your website, and by using the entity and using the knowledge graph, you can also make it much more easier, I mean, for the search engine. So you are improving the overall SEO on your website. It's not only a question related to the feature snippet itself. Okay, so let's see if you have any other question. Okay, then I believe we are okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for participating. See you in the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.